7 o'clock.
Okay, there you go. I'll come back too.
Okay.
I gotta log me off. You're live.
I'm live. Let's go. Okay. All right. It is 7 o'clock on Thursday, September 2nd, and I am calling to order the first meeting of the work study group relative to the police commissioners. Is that someone?
Was that the main clerk's computer?
Maybe?
I think so.
Just to remind everybody in the horseshoe, if you have a computer device, you gotta mute it.
I'm muted.
The feedback will now come into the system if you're on Zoom.
Speakers and mic.
Thank you, Alderman O'Brien. We are meeting in the Aldermanic Chamber and also via Zoom teleconference. The meeting link can be found on the agenda and on the city's city's website. We don't have a clerk yet, so I'll call the roll and then we will go on to nomination of vice and clerk. So Alderman Dowd,
Present.
Deborah Novotny,
Present.
if you're on Zoom, can you state that you're alone? We have to at least do that, right? And that you can hear us.
I'm alone and I can hear you.
Thank you, sorry. Eva Castillo? Anywhere? Okay. Nicholas Dahl,
Present.
thank you. Mary Lou Blaisdell,
I'm present and I am alone.
thank you. Mark Brave,
I'm present, alone in my dining room in Dover, New Hampshire.
thank you, Mark. Kendra, Susie? Did I see her? And Carrie Baxter.
Here, present.
Okay, thank you. Right now we have Kendra, Susie, and there was someone else we called that I missed, who are not present, but the rest of the committee is here. So the first order of business tonight is going to be mostly a planning conversation. I know that I've told the members of the committee that, but the very first order of business here is to have a vice chair and also a clerk. So I'd love to open up the floor to committee members to nominate a vice chair. Mary Lou's shaking her head. She doesn't want to be vice chair.
No, I'm shaking my head at my husband. So no, I'm shaking my head at my husband.
Alderman Dowd?
I'll volunteer to be vice chair.
Okay, nomination is for Alderman Dowd as vice chair. Any other nominations? And close nominations?
Make a motion to close nominations.
Great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay, and then I believe we actually have to have a vote on him as vice chair. So the motion is to have Alderman Dowd be vice chair. And if we could vote on that nomination, that'd be great. All those in favor? Aye. Yeah, I forget that they don't all know how to do this. Do we have to do roll call because we're half on Zoom and half on? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So we'll do roll call vote on that, I'm sorry. Going backwards. Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Deb Novotny,
Yes.
Eva Castillo. Not here. Nick Dahl,
Yes.
Mary Lou Blaisdell,
Yes,
Mark Brave.
Yes.
I don't know if Kendra just joined us. And as chair, I say yes. That motion carries. We also need a clerk. I know that not everyone on the committee is used to the going-ons of the Aldermanic Chamber, but a clerk is generally someone who just makes sure we've got all of the tech up here going and keeps notes for the back office. So Anyone want to be my clerk? I'm looking at the two of you. Anybody?
What does it involve?
Just you would do, instead of me doing the roll call, you do the roll call and make sure that the timer's on if we have public comment, and that's about it.
Alderman O'Brien to give you a good training session.
He's the clerk extraordinaire.
Well, if you need one tonight, it's gonna be me or Carrie, so I guess I'll do it. I don't think she's gonna fight me for it.
Okay, so nomination for Nick Dahl to be our clerk. Are there any other nominations, or can I close the nominations on the floor? Okay. So the motion is to close the nomination of clerk on the floor. Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Deb Novotny,
Yes.
Ava is not here. Nick Dahl,
Yes.
Mary Lou Blaisdell,
Yes.
Mark Brave,
Yes.
Kendra Susie,
Yes.
Carrie Baxter.
Yes.
That motion carries. Now we need to confirm our clerk. So the motion would be to confirm Nick Dahl as the clerk. And if there's no objection, I will do roll call. Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Deb Novotny,
Yes.
Nick Dahl,
Yes.
Mary Lou Blaisdell,
Yes.
Mark Brave,
Yes.
Kendra Susie,
Yes.
Carrie Baxter,
Yes.
and that motion carries. That's all of the motions that we'll need to handle this morning, or this evening. Okay, so,
Do you want me
I
to come
want-
up?
I'm sorry?
Do you want me to come up
That
now?
would be great if you don't mind. I don't think we're gonna have any more votes, but yeah. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll show you how to do this. Okay. I just want the record to show that Kendra Susie joined us by Zoom during the last roll call. Did I miss anybody else? Okay, great. So the next agenda item on the list is discussion. Mostly, like I had said before, this is going to be a planning meeting. How do we want this to work? What questions do we want answered, et cetera? So in true me fashion, I have a PowerPoint. Is that going? Okay. Okay, so I put together the agenda that's appended to the agenda. We already elected our vice chair and clerk. What we're gonna do first is just go around and introduce each other. Do not have the privilege to know everybody who's serving on this committee. I'm very pleased to have all these people, and I want to hear what your backgrounds are, et cetera. And then I want to talk a little bit about how we want to meet, how often we want to meet, that kind of structural pieces. And then I was hoping that together we could create a list of questions or information we need to move forward and really get into the meat of this discussion here. And then also, along with that, who might need to come to the table to help us sort of form this conversation. So just, back to the goal of the committee, was really to bring all sides to the table in this discussion in terms of the police commission, how it's appointed, really discuss it in depth. And then, by the end of this, offer some recommendations to the Board of Aldermen and the community really at large based on the research and the discussions that we have in this smaller group. So, that is not the right slide. Give me 1 second, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, it just went in a weird order. Okay. It's definitely the right. Okay. So I think what we could start with is going around. I'd love each committee member to just introduce themselves, where they're from. Not everybody is necessarily from Nashua, and I will call on people in a random order. Can we start with you, Carrie?
Sure.
That'd be great.
Carrie Baxter, I retired from the Nashua Police Department last fall. At the time of my retirement, I had achieved the rank of captain and was the bureau commander for the Detective Bureau. I'm currently employed as a police officer in Massachusetts, and I moved to Nashua in 1998 when I started my career with Nashua PD, and I've been a property owner in the city since 2000.
Thank you very much. Very thorough. Mary Lou, could you go next for me?
Sure. I'm Mary Lou Blaisdell. I've lived in Nashua since 1988. I come into this totally open-minded. I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I own a business downtown. I also serve as chair of the Downtown Improvement Committee, and look forward to this discussion.
Thank you very much, Mary Lou. Let's go to Mark Brave, please.
Good evening, committee members. My name is Mark Brave. I am the Stratford County High Sheriff. I live in Dover, New Hampshire, and I am here to give some insights on a few cities around us that do have police commissions and some ideas we can take from them to accomplish your goal as a community.
Thank you very much, Mark. Kendra, I see you next.
My name is Kendra Smith. I want to see if you could correct that too on the paper. And I have lived here since 1990. Small business owner here in Nashua.
Thank you, Kendra. My clerk?
Hi, my name's Nick Dahl. I'm a Nashua native. I've lived here most of my life. Been with the federal government since 1989. I work for an Office of Inspector General, overseeing the Department of Veterans Affairs, the second largest agency in government. And I am a police commissioner here in Nashua and have been for 6 years.
Thank you. Alderman Dowd.
Yes, Alderman Dowd, Alderman from Ward 2, lifelong resident of Nashua, and I am the liaison from the Board of Aldermen to the Board of Police Commissioners, and also chairman of the Joint Special School Building Committee, and budget chair for the city.
Thank you. And Deb Novotny, please.
Sorry about that. My name's Debbie Novotny. I am a Nashua native. I work at Enterprise Bank as a commercial lender, and I only know what I've read in the paper, so really interested to hear how this came about and what the options are going forward.
Thank you so much, Deb. I think I'm it. I'm Shoshana Kelly. I'm an alderwoman at large. I've lived in Nashua for 16 years now. I have 2 children, one who's in the school district. I'm also a small business owner with offices right on Main Street in downtown. So again, I just want to thank everyone for their willingness to give their time. As someone who's got lots on my plate, I know that this is time that you are taking away from friends and family to do this really important work, so I appreciate that. So this was the slide that I was trying to find, and you'll probably all laugh at me, but I facilitate and do this kind of work for a living in terms of brainstorming, and I really want to kind of set the tone of that's what this is, that we're all coming with different sides, we're all gonna be passionate about it, but as we're brainstorming, let's really set a space where we can be open, and really, you know, push each other to have this conversation. So I say that I laugh because I literally use this when I brainstorm and we fill the wall with Post-its. But I threw these out. I'd love to hear if the committee has any more to add, but the community ones that I use are just one speaker at a time. The idea of being ragged, that you don't have to feel like it's fully fleshed out before you talk about it, so we can really get into the nuts of that. Yes, and when someone has an idea, so you're building on it. My favorite is step up, step back. If you're someone who is constantly talking, maybe be the listener and the alternate as well. Assume best intentions. I think that really important in brainstorming, that we're all, especially with something like this, like that we all understand that we're here to do a job for the city and be, you know, fair and open in how we do this. So there's that. And then I always tell people, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not doing it right. So that's just my little, I think it's a good way to set up a brainstorm so that everybody can come to the table. Okay. So does anyone have any norms they want to add or anything they want to comment on before I move on? There are norms in the chamber in terms of being called on. I know that not everybody here is an alderman, so if you want to speak from the committee, just if you're on Zoom, raise your little fake hand. Or you can literally wave your hand at me. And if you're in the chamber, just, you know, raise your hand and we'll call on you. Okay, so I think the nuts and bolts of tonight is really the structure idea, like how do we want to meet, when do we want to meet, how do we want to engage with the public? And I know I have my ideas, but I really wanted it to be a collaboration with everyone here. So I kind of want to just open the floor. These were thoughts of like, how often do we want to meet? When do we think we want to have a full recommendation? So I'd love to hear from the committee members. Oh, I see Mary Lou's hands go.
Can you explain this, Shoshana, since there seems to be, will this topic be on the ballot in November? And if it is, does that override what our committee's suggestion may be? And how does the study coincide and work with that timetable?
I was wondering how long before this question came up. It's a good question. And I think that, you know, the aldermen have really said the piece that was in front of us, we tabled because we felt strongly that we needed to talk about it. It is, I believe it was certified, the petition is part of the packet that I gave you guys, but yes. I don't think that stops our work here. What happens in November, you know, yay or nay, we still can continue to have this conversation and make recommendations. And in my mind, we have 2 years because it goes on the ballot in 2 years.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Why are you making that face?
It's on the ballot this November.
I know. For our recommendations, it would be 2 years from, right? Because it won't make this November. Sorry if that was unclear. I was like, did I get the municipal wrong? Alderman Dowd.
I think as we have discussions and findings come out, you know, they'll be made public and it may or may not influence anything that goes on in November.
Does that answer your question, Mary Lou?
Yes, thank you very much.
Does anyone have follow-ons or other thoughts? Mark, Brave.
I would say I like the evening times. I don't know time of day, wherever works for everyone, but anytime after 4 would work for me in regards to making the meetings.
Great. As aldermen, we're used to that sort of 7 o'clock slot, so I know that works for myself and the chamber's availability. This is like Zoom and here. Does anyone else here? So does the 7 o'clock slot feel good for people? And we don't have to make a formal, just like a nod would be good. Okay, and then Thursdays are good for the chamber. The 1st and the 3rd are probably the best. I think you have a conflict on the 2nd week, right?
I have a conflict on the 4th, which is the joint special.
Okay. So that would, I think, would be the next question. Do we want to meet once a month, twice a month? Generally, the cadence with, aldermanic is once or twice a month.
I would think that, given that we might want to have some potential impact on the election this November, that we should be meeting every other week or twice a month.
Alderman Deb, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think every other week.
Okay.
And, I think we put out potential times and dates and have everybody respond and make sure we get the most people here. If there are conflicts with the chamber, we can have the meeting at 6.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so I'm hearing affirmatively twice a month feels right. If someone disagrees, you can yell at me through Zoom. Are you all good? Okay. So twice a month, the 7-ish hour works. So I'll put a calendar together that would reflect that and make sure that the board, the aldermanic chamber is available for that time. So someone mentioned recommendations based on like November, but I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about when we think further out from that, when we can give a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen. Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, I think we probably need to have a few meetings, get some data and information on hand before we can actually even determine what date we should be giving a feedback to the Board of Aldermen.
I think that's fair. Okay, so I'll put together the schedule twice a week. Twice a week. That would be a lot.
That would be
We're
intense.
very lovely people, but that's a lot. It's twice a month. And then I'll share that out to everybody, make sure that times works, and then we can publish it so everybody knows when we're meeting. So then the other piece I had was the format of how we want to meet. I know in the discussions in the aldermanic chamber and, when I was talking about this, I wanted to make sure that we do have some public forum where we can sit down and discuss this. I think we have work to do as the study committee, but I also really do want to hear from citizens, whoever would like to come to the table. And I'm interested to hear how people, if they have ideas of how that might work, or if they've seen ways that that's worked in the past. Mark.
So I've seen it work where, especially here at the county, Stratford County, the commissioners would have, 15 minutes at some point during their meeting, open it to the public. They would provide a Zoom link, or they can show up in person now. But I think that would be the format. You're giving them both options, I guess.
Thank you. Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, I think that, the purpose of the committee is to collect data and inform the public of what we're finding on both sides of the question. And perhaps we could, and we definitely want public input. We can certainly ask that people solicit input to us in writing so that we can study it. And perhaps we have public input every other meeting, because if we're gonna have it, if we end up having it at 7 or at 6 with another meeting at 7, if we're gonna get anything done, we need to spend at least every other meeting with just work session.
Okay, so the suggestion from Mark is kind of how we already do public comments. And Alderman Dowd is saying maybe we do public comment every other meeting. Other thoughts? I'm looking around mass faces, which is hard too, and Zoom, trying to see if I'm missing anybody. Okay, so I think that makes sense. The every other public meeting, public comment open to, so we can get work done, especially if we're crunched in an hour. Okay. So then my next slide was really about gathering from you all what types of pieces of this, puzzle do we need to really do this work. So I'd love to just start to get some ideas from, I know a couple people mentioned I don't know much, or I know only what I read in the articles. So as you're sitting as a committee member here, like what types of questions do we think we need to really address so that we can kind of get to who might need to come, et cetera? Mary Lou, go ahead.
I think is, a basic question is, what brought us to this point? Why at this point in time do we need to look at changing it? Are there circumstances that we as citizens of Nashua may not be aware of that have gone on that we need to look at how the police commission is formed? And I think just very basic of why now do we need to look at a change? And if we are going to look at a change, I think we need to talk to people on both sides of the equation who are for and against it and why they are. Probably from the chief of police to the mayor and on down to understand everybody's opinion and how the commission runs right now and why it runs the way it does right now.
Yes, that's great.
I think also hearing from other communities who have gone from, or who are running the city is actually appointing the commissioners, of how that is working, what, and the pros and cons of that as well.
And, potentially vice versa too. Cities who have, maybe not in New Hampshire, but in other states like Massachusetts. How do they do it and what does that look like?
Right.
I thought I saw someone else's hand up on Zoom. Is it you, Mark? Go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is, has the city ever considered moving those positions to an elected position where the people, the citizens would vote for the best candidates as opposed to appointed?
Yeah, and I feel like the answer to that is potentially in the history, like, have we ever looked at this before? And then again, to Deb's point, like, in communities where they've done that, what's that look like?
Shoshana?
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
So I'd be interested in hearing from the people who are interested in changing how the commission is made up. They've cited concerns on transparency, so I'm curious to see if they have some examples of where there's been a lack of transparency. Additionally, I'd like to know more about what their process is going to be for appointing these commissioners, how they would be selected, the vetting process, if they would be subject to some sort of background check, as commissioners are privy to a lot of sensitive information, and just kind of what their general process would be and what the vetting process would be.
I'm gonna run out of space. I have to make a new slide. Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, I came into this with some thoughts that I understand, I think, where the people that put the item on the ballot are coming from. And from a general standpoint, I don't necessarily have a problem with going to 5 members. I certainly don't have a problem whatsoever with ensuring that we have a woman on the police commission, and maybe a little more racial mix. The one concern I have with the item that's on the ballot now is, and I could be wrong, but it appears to me that if the mayor and the group of aldermen had an issue with the police department and the police commissioners, they could get rid of all of them and vote in new people. One of the things that somewhere along the line that I would strictly want to adhere to is if that ever changes because of if the ballot passes, that it takes a supermajority of the Board of Aldermen to remove any police commissioner. There has to be a valid reason, not just because you disagree with what they did, per se. So, and I think that, you know, this is a charter change, and charter changes are very serious, you know, and there should be a distinct reason. I serve as a liaison to the police commissioners. I don't see anything right now with the police department that's working wrong whatsoever. We have one of the highest accredited police departments, maybe in the country and definitely in New England. Scored almost perfect scores on the evaluation. Is it perfect? Nothing's perfect. But I certainly think that anything that has an issue is taken care of judiciously and quickly. I know that most people in the city of Nashua think we have an outstanding police department, don't have any issues with it. So my concern for this committee is to look at all the facts, garner the information, and put the right question on the ballot if we determine, you know, what that question would be. And because I don't know how the question was formulated, by who, and if it meets the real needs that the city should be looking for. I also have had input from a lot of people, some of them even to sign the petition, they want their name off, because all they heard was local control, which I can understand, but there are other ways to get more local control, perhaps in a partial way over time. So there are other things to consider, and there are also a lot of pieces of the puzzle relative to political inputs to the police commission that have not come up and may come up in this committee meeting. Things that have happened over the years, and you know, I've lived in Nashua for 75 years, so I think I have a pretty good background on things that have happened, and my father and my uncle were both judges here in Nashua, so I've been exposed to a lot of what goes on. And I just think that if we're gonna make a charter change, that it should be thought out, it should be articulated, and it should be the right question. Right now, I think there are issues with what's on the ballot.
Thank you. I made a bunch of notes while you were talking. Added some on my own. But I know that you touched on the dismissal, so I put concerns about the mechanism for dismissal. I'm interested in how it's currently handled. Accreditation I put down because I think you brought that up as well. Does the commission, how it's appointed, affect the CALEA? Are there cities on both sides who have that accreditation in terms of how they're appointed? Those were some of that were in my head that I was adding as you were talking.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put the historical background, which I know we've touched on a couple of times, but I think there's, you know, a few facets to that. I see Deb's hand up. Go ahead.
Just to go back to Mary Lou's and comment or the question that she wanted answered, I think we really need to understand, you know, what brought this on? What is wrong with the way that it is done now that needs to be fixed? what happened? Why are we here now? And then for Alderman Dowd, is there anything we can do about the way that the petition and what's going to be on the ballot is worded? Because I'm in agreement with you that the way it's worded, if people aren't really understanding everything that is all the background on it and don't understand, you see local control and you're going to say yes, which I agree with. But how did this happen, and is there a way to change the wording of the question? I would imagine no. So from here, without being able to change it, I think we need to understand exactly why this was brought up, what the issue was that is trying to be fixed, what is wrong with the current process. If I could nominate someone and that person's vetted through the state, what will the difference, or I guess the huge difference is that, in this new role, it would be the mayor or the Board of Aldermen appointing someone, or it would be vetted. It just seems, I guess, why is this happening is a really important thing to understand. And how did this even come to fruition?
Thank you. Alderman Wilshire, you wanted to
Thank
respond?
you. The board can't make any significant changes to the ballot question. If we do, there'll have to be a second public hearing, and, we may have to move it out to a special election if we make any significant changes to the wording in the referendum.
Alderman Dowd.
I could just add to that discussion with Attorney Bolton, went over the laws involved, and any change to the ballot question would have to go back to Concord through 3 levels of review. And the way the laws are written, basically all the Board of Aldermen can do when it comes before us is make sure that the city clerk has validated the signatures. And if they have, we have to pass it along.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well, that it's the way it is worded is how it will go on the ballot. And as aldermen, we declined to make it on the ballot the way we wanted because we wanted to do the study. Deb, is your hand still up as a follow-up or just accidental?
No, I guess I didn't know I had to unraise my hand. Hold on.
You're good. I just wanted to make sure you didn't have a follow-up. Kendra, I see your hand up.
Okay, so my question is, Alderman Dowd said that, the process that works now seems to work well, pretty much, in that, there really haven't been any issues with the police department in the last 70 years. Growing up in the tree streets, I guess I can't agree. I don't agree that everything kind of works out. I guess the tree streets kind of have a bad rep, but that doesn't mean anything. But my question, I guess, is how are we getting the word out to the people in the inner city? Are we just taking, the word from the suburban part of Nashua, or are we actually going to involve the inner city people and get the word out to them so that they can be heard as well?
I think that's a great question, and I think, I've been very clear that I want to make sure that public has a say in this. From a city perspective, we posted at the library, posted all of the steps, but I think in terms of getting stakeholders at the table, I think that can be some of the work that we do as committee members. If you think someone should be here for a public comment session and you really think they're valid, that's probably, it's not, we could post it on the website and people are like, oh, that's happening today. So I think you bring up a really valid point. I appreciate it. You go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, we all, I don't know how many people here watch the Board of Education meetings, but it tends to be when things are posted like that we get the same 15 people giving the same 100 comments. And there's never a different perspective because, the small majority speaks for the whole city. So, for me to be on this board, I think I represent the people from downtown Nashua, in pretty much the minorities that don't usually have a voice in things like this. So I appreciate you bringing me on. However, I mean, if I have to go door knock, I'm willing to do that. I already feed the kids, so I'll be out there anyways. I think a sheet of paper maybe, if we could print something out, I'd be happy to get them to the places that they need to be. Because I just don't think it's fair that we're doing this. And obviously, you know, a lot of them, just like they didn't have, you know, technology for their kids to be able to do online learning, it's going to be the same situation where they're not going to see this and their voices aren't going to be heard.
I will happily make you a flyer. It's I do that in my spare time. Deb, did you want to speak again?
I did. Kendra, you bring up a valid point. I think that we need to identify some of the leaders in downtown and in this Tree Street and make sure they know the information so that they can be sharing it and giving everyone that voice and maybe, you know, really requesting people to come to the meeting. And there are certain, you know, Kendra, I'm sure you could name 10 people that we really need to be making sure that they're fully aware of, you know, what this is, you know, what is happening, what this is about, and how do they feel about it so that they can bring their voice to it.
Okay. Alderman Wilshire.
One of the things that we had talked about when we first started talking about the study committee was maybe bringing it to ward meetings. I don't know. I mean, time is really of the essence to get the word out, you know, that there's more than one side to this issue. I don't know if we could do that maybe instead of 9 wards, maybe we could do 3 wards at a time and just invite people to wherever they can be in their ward and talk to them. I think nine meetings would be a little too much, but if we could condense those a little bit, maybe wards 1 through 3 and then 4 to 6 and 7 to 9. I don't know. I agree though that the public needs to hear this.
Okay. I'll put that to the committee. What do you guys think? I know we talked about, you know, public comment, every other public comment here. What do we think about either additional ward meetings or ward meetings instead of the public comment at our work sessions?
I'm in favor of it.
Mark, I think you raised your hand.
I just want to add, I think this touches on ensuring that this decision here isn't, or this problem arising isn't a reflection on the current climate in the city of Nashua and the residents, like residents on the Tree Streets or downtown or in the suburbia. You know, you want to make sure that this is something that's due to concern, as opposed to, hey, we don't know what's going on. We just know there's a police commission that make decisions that are important to us in regards to public safety. So I think having those meetings and inviting those wards in small groups would be beneficial in at least eliminating that piece of it.
Okay, it sounds like everybody thinks the ward meetings is a good idea. I also think it is. Obviously the committee would be there. I would want the chief there. Is there anyone else that we think would be good to have at the board meetings? Looking around. Okay.
I think having the chief there is a good idea, and, you know, maybe even someone who is looking for the charter change.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, great. Analog and virtual notes. Go ahead. Karen.
I just had something else that came to mind about additional questions that I'd like to have answered, because I obviously know one side of this issue because I lived it for 22 years. But in addition to learning more about what they feel are their concerns with transparency, I'm also interested in learning what benefit this charter change would have to the Nashua Police Department, to its employees, and how this would benefit the city. There's been, local control has been cited, so much along the lines of what are the concerns with the transparency? What are the concerns and where are the issues with local control over the police department?
I think that's really, really valid points.
And also, you know, what their long-term goals are for
Long-term
that
goals is
charter
good.
change.
This is kind of similar, unless there's more questions. I think like it's kind of tied in there, but is there any specific data? So I put you guys together a packet just off of what I thought had our notes from what we've discussed. It had a list of all of the commissioners ever appointed in Nashua. Are there any like data pieces that we think might be good to try to gather for this? Alderman Dow.
Yeah, I think that, you know, we've heard that we're the only city and town in the state of New Hampshire that doesn't have local control over the police commissions. But I think that, and just some preliminary stuff that I've done, I think we need to get data on how that's been accepted in the other cities and towns. For instance, Manchester has a police commissioners, but they're advisory only. You know, how does that work? And the other cities, and, you know, maybe we could each, or some of us anyway, pick different police departments or commissioners and talk to them and get feedback as to, hey, how are things working in these other places? May be working great, may not be. They may want to, you know, change to some other, perhaps maybe not going back to the state, but some other intermediary way of doing things. Find out what's wrong in these other cities and towns that they'd like corrected, and that might give us some insight.
Yeah, what I heard from you is like the structure of commissions. I think there could be like just a data of like, what are the different structures that there are in New Hampshire? What are the different structures there are in Massachusetts? Like, pick a city in the middle of California that's about the same size. Like, what does that look like? So I think how they're structured, and to your point, that there's different ways that they interact. They're not all, to your point, that advisory is a little bit different. So I wrote down structure, and then how has the change affected is what you had said, but I think we have that captured above. I did the list, I'll add that list of past commissioners. Is anyone a numbers geek? Anything else you think would be good to put here?
Shoshana?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I did review the list of previous commissioners going back to 100 years, and I don't go back 100 years, but I can tell you that two things struck me. One, I knew a lot of the people on that list, and from my history and perspective going back quite a few years, that they were all outstanding Nashua individuals. Walter Barker was a major company owner here in Nashua. He and Morris Orell, who ended up being mayor, was commissioner for a long time. And the other thing is that most of the people that served as commissioners served for a number of years. It may go back 100 years, but there are not that many commissioners when you start adding it up. So, you know, the one thing that concerns me in going forward is I want to be sure that whatever we do, that there's no political influence on the police department. I think we found in things going on in Boston and other places that if there's political input on the police commission, you have a problem with the police department.
When you were talking, I added the idea of like the average length of a commissioner, also in Nashua, other cities, that I'm just interested to know how long people tend to serve. other things from the committee that's not in the chamber? Okay. I think this is kind of baked in and we may be able to just do this a little bit offline, but like, who do we need to hear from? Who can get us these answers? I know we talked about the chief. Who else?
I think if you check with Corporation Counsel, we may be able to share things amongst the group as long as we make the information public
By email?
by email
Okay.
or other written forms of communication.
Did you check with him? I have not.
I have not on that particular question, but again, I think that we want to be as transparent as possible, and anything we find out. There may be instances where people want to come in and tell us things that are sensitive or, back in my past history, classified, and we may have to do that in a non-public session and only say what the findings were in general and not specifics, because they may involve names of people. There have been instances in the past where things have come up that if there were political influence on the police commissioners, it would have been an issue.
Okay. Kendra, was it that your hand up? No, okay. Go ahead.
Well, I think in addition to the current chief, it would be great if we could hear from some past chiefs who, might have some thoughts on the matter, positive and negative, on how the commission is structured and how it works. There's still quite a few that are in the area, and maybe they would be willing to come speak.
Mm-hmm.
I think someone had already, I think that's a valid point. Past chiefs is interesting too, especially where we've outlined some history things that we really want to talk about. I'm just adding that we had talked about someone who's in favor of the charter change. Chiefs, past chiefs. Oh, I have 2 hands raised. I'm missing them. Who are they? Oh, thank you. Go ahead, Deb.
I have to go off mute, sorry. Just wondering, is there a way that do you think we could get someone from the executive council to come to kind of explain how the process works, what they're vetting? Like, could someone from the executive council kind of come and talk about how it happens now and what their involvement is after
That's great.
the commissioners are selected?
Great. Yep. Kendra?
I was gonna add to that, maybe some current and past police officers, just to get their perspective. I mean, they're the ones that work within, that culture, so maybe they would have some insight of, reasons why they left or reasons why they stay.
And I know we have a commissioner on here, but maybe some past commissioners. Were you done, Kendra? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that was fine. I just meant like current officers, maybe not a commissioner, but,
Yeah, I have current and past officers. Yeah, I think I got that. Okay. Who else? I'm gonna put the mayor on here since he put in the piece of legislation. Is there anyone else we want to add to this? Or I'm sure we can add to it offline, but I think this is a good start. Okay. I'll share these notes with everybody, trying to make sure we capture it and we can add to questions and go from there. So next steps for me, I'll share the list. We can formalize our next time to meet, and then we'll share all that out and make sure that people know when we're meeting and when they can join in the conversation. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. We have our formal agenda over here. So we were in discussion. So we do have on the agenda tonight, public comments.
Just before that, relative to minutes, people may not be aware that we do not have our stenographer anymore, and Donna's on vacation right now. Minutes may be delayed coming out because we just don't have the staff right now to do them expeditiously.
Thank you. That'll be important. But the recording is available pretty quickly after
The
we.
recording is, immediate.
So if people can't find
Pretty
the,
much immediate.
find those right away, they can definitely watch it in all its glory. Alderman Wilshire.
Thank you. In between meetings, like, I'm wondering if people might want to take some of these suggestions and, reach out to a police commissioner in another town, another city, and not just say, okay, we're here at the meeting and then we'll meet in 2 weeks, but nothing in between.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what you want. I mean, it's not just to sit here in a room, but to get people actively working on this.
I think that's really smart. Alderman Dowd, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, but I think we ought to coordinate so that we're not hitting the same person with 3 different people and not missing somebody else, so coordination on that would be key.
Yeah, and I once we talked to Attorney Bolton about electronic communication, whether we can talk through email, then maybe we can assign tasks to people based on the list of people we think we want to have at the table. I think that's smart, because that does happen. You have a meeting and then you go away and they're like, oh, it's here again.
I think that I'll try and reach out to maybe some of the other police chiefs. Now that Fairgrounds Middle School is completed, I have at least one day of the week when I'm not tied up with a school project. Well, that doesn't always work either, but.
Okay, so you'll look for some past chiefs. I already spoke with the chief who was unable to make it this evening, but he said that he would make every effort to be at our next one, so I can talk to him again. And then Kendra said she was open to reaching out to some of her neighbors, and I'm happy to help give whatever you need in terms of letting them know when we're meeting. I see Deb and Mark with their hand up. Deb first, please.
No, just forgot to lower it.
Mark, go ahead.
I know I have within 15 minutes of Dover, Portsmouth, which I have information. They have a police commission in Rochester, New Hampshire, so I can take those 2 and reach out to those chiefs and police commissioners.
That would be great. Thank you so much, Mark. Laura's not on the committee. Anyone here? We also have some knowledge in this room, so that'll be good to have. Okay. We went back to business, but we are now opening for public comments. If you have public comment, please come to the mic, state your name and your address, and we will still have the 3-minute. Yeah, he knows how to do it. I think he's got it. I did the rest. Good.
Good evening, Karen Bill, 95 Parnell Place here in Nashua. It's very interesting to me that this is being rushed onto the ballot and that there's no changes that could be made. It's kind of suspect, if you ask me. Putting the cart before the horse.
She's saying that the mic isn't on?
Oh, I thought she said. You can just come to,
Said it wanted a seat at the
unless
end.
it's on.
The mic? How's this?
Yeah.
No.
No, you can just just sit in the first chair. You can be Dave Tenza. We'll fix it that way. And if you don't mind, we'll start over, just state your name
Yeah,
and your
no
address.
problem. Is this okay? Great. Karen Bill, 95 Parnell Place here in Nashua.
I don't want to penalize you.
I think the whole process is a little bit suspect with getting this on the ballot in a format that can't be changed. It's putting the cart before the horse, really. And I'm glad to see this group meeting, and I hope that there is a lot of public input and that there is ways that the public can voice their opinion to have a meaningful outcome on a nay vote in November, so that then there is time to actually work on all the questions that everybody on the committees asked. Why now? What happened? Did anything happen? For instance, the big thing that you hear in every single article or every discussion, well, there hasn't been a woman on the commission since 1891. Well, I'm glad it took finally somebody after 130 years woke up. Come on, that's not an argument. Because they're not screaming, there hasn't been a person of color. So sure, we can go from 3 to 5, and there should be a woman on it. There should be a person of color. Doesn't have to be just one woman. We should advertise it, whether it's on Facebook through the health department. We have to figure out where people get their information from the inner city. Is there a cable option to put on not only Comcast, but a lot of people don't have Comcast anymore. So a lot of people can't even see these meetings because it's only on Comcast. Can we insert it in a bill? But bills go to landlords, not always the tenants. So we really have to be a little bit creative on how to get this information out. So I think that public comment should be available at every meeting. And like people said, it's not just coming here, talking about it and doing work here at this meeting. It's the work that gets done in between that you're bringing back. Lori, you're the one that said it, that you're bringing back to the table and showing information about, how we can make it better. But again, I really do hope that the vote comes out a no, because I think it's being rushed. I don't think people understand it enough. And I'm very glad that there is going to be a discussion. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You just figured that out.
Great job. Thank you, Mike. My savior.
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just to move through some items quickly, I do think there was definite confusion by some people who signed that petition. I know I've been out talking to people, and there are definitely people who regretted putting their name on it and not understanding what they were fully
Mic is
signing.
not working.
The mic is not working.
But just sit in the seat. Sorry.
For some reason, that's not going out on the,
Clears it for you.
When it gets plugged in or something, I don't know.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. Lori, if you could state your name and start over, please.
Okay, Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. People definitely were not aware of what they were signing, some of these individuals, and didn't understand the ramifications of it. And they definitely said to me that they're not voting for it and they regretted having their name on it. Really, once you put your name on a petition, you can't really take it off. It's there. Also, I think exit polling is very important. We have a great opportunity. In 8 weeks, we're going to be at the polls voting. No matter what happens with this vote, if it passes or it doesn't, we have an opportunity to have information on the table and question people coming out, and let's gather data coming out of the polling. Because no matter what, the committee's going to still work and try to come up with a solution that we think is a united solution. And that's an opportunity. There could be 10,000 people coming out of those polls. I love the idea of the ward meetings grouped together, 3 at a time. You don't have time not to. I can tell you the public is hungry. Those people who are concerned about this want a unified message. They're out there now, and they're not certain what exactly we should say and what we should put together, what kind of signage we should have for the police. And it would be nice if someone on this board or a few people on this board could help direct that. There's 2 functions here as I see it. There's this longer term study committee, absolutely necessary. And then we have this short 8-week need of trying to, we're either going to take a position to try and stop that vote from happening or make people more educated, to make a more informed vote, or we're going to just let it fly and say whatever happens, happens. I don't think there's enough people in the public that I think don't want to just let it fly and let's see what happens. They want to participate and trying to educate people, handing out literature, putting up signage, and trying to tell people what they think is important. As far as expanding, okay, the executive council, I think it's great to invite somebody from the executive council, but I can tell you there are people that have been calling the governor's office, one individual in particular, talking to the assistant up there. You need somebody out of the governor's office, because the governor's office is making the nomination for the executive council, and they're actually doing the screening. And there's a woman up there who has a lot of knowledge, and I think the idea of getting an executive counselor in here is great, but I think the past counselor would be interesting, Deborah Pignatelli. Let's get her back in, because she picked the last executive counselor. What type of concerns did she have? What was the vetting process like? She's right here from Nashua. And let's pick her brain and find out what's going on. And check with other commissioners. It sounds like that's going to happen. As far as expanding the board goes, or the commission, I'm not really in favor of that. Okay, you can do it, but you can find qualified women or minorities to come join a 3-person board, I think, without issue. There's plenty of opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else from the public wish to speak? I see you, Ms. Calhoun, but I'm going to finish in the chamber first. I like your mask. I have a matching one.
Is this working? Hi, I know most of you. My name is Sonia Prince. I live at 49 Tufts Drive in Nashua. I find it interesting that this study committee is mostly made up of people who want to keep the status quo and had to go outside the city to find people who would support no change. For example, Stratford County Sheriff, Mr. Mark Braves, and a Manchester Police Commissioner, Ms. Eva Castañeros, who doesn't seem to be here this evening. I have a question for the 2 invited guests from Dover and Manchester. I am very curious. Since both Manchester and Dover are both CALEA certified and have local control over the police commission appointments, do you find that your police departments are corrupt? I would love to hear that. According to our Nashua Police Chief, Michael Kerrigan, he claims it will be an issue here in Nashua. Do you truly believe that to be right? Those are my questions to both of them. Would there be corruption? Is there corruption in your Dover Police Department, Sheriff Braves? How about your police department in Manchester? Ms. Castañero, if she listens to this recording, I would love to hear. Does local control mean automatic corruption like our Chief Michael Kerrigan is suggesting? I'm very curious to know and looking forward to your responses tonight, if possible. Obviously, Mrs. Castañeros is not here, so that won't happen, but I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Calhoun?
Laura Cahoon at 30 Greenwood Drive. This committee is a total waste of time because the committee is not going to have enough time to educate the Nashua residents before November. Especially now with the mayor shoving this charter change down our throats.
Ms. Calhoun, you have to mute in one place or the other. We've got a big reverberation. We can't hear you. Yeah. Are you still there? Okay. If she fixes it, we'll let her finish. Is there anyone else in the chamber? I don't see anyone else on Zoom.
Do I get to finish my statement, Madam Secretary?
That you could finish it if you finished your technical difficulties. Would you like to continue?
Well, I don't know what I'm doing with technical. The mayor does not want the residents to know what is really going down, and what he's actually doing is making a major power play. The police commissioners are all Nashua residents and are all highly qualified. But our mayor keeps telling the Nashua residents that Nashua doesn't have any control when this is not true. Problem is our mayor wants complete control. The next charter change will be the change from the name of the city of Nashua to the kingdom of Taunchus. Residents must be reminded of what happened in 1997 when some of the members of the Board of Aldermen went to jail. If the police commissioners were friends of the mayor at that time, that would have never happened, and then the corruption would really have grown. I will definitely be voting no and asking everybody else to vote no on this charter change. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I don't see any other members of the public present or raising their hand, so we'll move on to remarks by the committee. Does anyone from the committee like to make a remark before we close for the evening here? Alderman Dowd?
I think we're off to a good start, and I think that we'll be progressing as we go along. And I think that we will find out a lot of things that we don't know now, and that's the whole key behind this committee.
Thank you, Alderman Dowd. Anyone else want to make a comment? Well, the Zoom's great, but it's like you have to make sure that there's no people there and here. Okay, I don't see anyone else, so do I have a motion? Alderman Dowd.
Motion to adjourn.
The motion is to adjourn. We have to do it by roll call.
All right.
Could the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Dowd,
Yes.
Deborah Novotny,
Yes.
Mary Lou Blaisdell,
Yes.
Mark Brave,
Yes.
Kendra Smith,
Yes.
Terry Baxter, and Nick Dahl, yes.
And that motion carries, and we are adjourned at 8:12 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work.
Thank you.